Hello, friend. John Dalton here for the Emergence podcast, where we explore consciousness, the mystery, and love. And in this episode, we're going into being kind, elevating others, acknowledging your significance, trees, the power of your attention, and a question about living in the moment. But before that, let's have a quick review of the memes on the Further Emergence Instagram feed. I didn't write this one, but it's very good. It's two lollipops or ice creams, or I think in America they're called popsicles. In Ireland they're called ice pops. And written on them in little beads it says, "If you're unsure who to be, the world needs more kind people." And I think this is lovely because, there's so many different things we could be in the world these days. We could be, there's probably more things that we could be now than ever. And it's very easy to feel like, what am I going to do with my life? What's my life's purpose? What am I here for? What's the universe trying to get me to do? All that kind of thing. And that can be pretty hard to figure out. Because it's a multifaceted question. What am I supposed to be doing here? This is a great default position to go to. While you're figuring out what to do, what the right thing for you to do, the world needs more kind people. It's just so simple. And while you're figuring out the big thing, here's a little thing, which is actually also a big thing to be doing while you're waiting. To know what you're supposed to be doing. So this idea of just, why not be kind while you're waiting? Why not be a kind person? Make that your goal. That's beautiful and very admirable. And then the other thing will kind of figure itself out, because often you figure out what you are meant to be doing by doing all sorts of things that you're not meant to be doing. I have interviewed many, many, many artists, and it's beautiful when they know what they want to do right from the word go. But I don't think they realize what a gift that is, because I certainly didn't. And I have done many, many, many things in my life. And I think I am probably more like what most people are. I think the artists who kind of know from the age of 5 they want to be an artist, they're very lucky. But I think for most other people, it's a process of elimination, and it's a process of what you're meant to be doing at the time. Often it changes as you get older. Different things become, that's the thing to do, and there is no one thing, I am going to be an architect and that's it. I'm going to be an architect for the rest of my life. If you are, fantastic. But it's okay if you're an architect for 10 years and then you suddenly realize it's not the thing for you anymore, or there's something else. One thing often leads to the next, and one thing, you bring everything with you. Like if you were an architect, for example, for 10 years, and then you went and did something completely different, what would be completely different to an architect? Let's say you became a dog groomer. You really liked cutting dogs' hair. You would bring something from your knowledge of architecture into that. Now, maybe you'd end up doing very architectural haircuts for dogs. I don't know, but nothing's ever lost. Nothing's ever wasted, and that takes the pressure off a bit, because you have to sort of find out what your purpose is. Your purpose is mostly to enjoy your life. I can save you a bit of time there. Your purpose is to enjoy your life. So whatever you're doing, you should be enjoying it, and you're deep, what you're here for. Asking yourself, what am I here for, is a good question to ask generally, but not a great question to ask in terms of there's a preordained path I am supposed to follow, and if I'm not following it, I'm failing in some way. It's not great in that way. That's a recipe for being unhappy. So what am I supposed to be doing here? You're supposed to be enjoying yourself. Not in a hedonistic way, meaning it's supposed to be a pleasurable experience. Now you can set yourself challenges. You might want to run a marathon, or you might want to climb a highest mountain or something like that. That's fine once you're enjoying it. You're enjoying the process of it. And you're not fixated on the destination, but you're enjoying the process. If you enjoy the moments of your life, then you're enjoying the time of your life and you're having the time of your life. Didn't write this one either, but it's really nice. It's a picture of an alligator walking along and he meets a little mouse, and the mouse says, "Sometimes I feel like nobody can see me." It's like a cartoon. And then in the next frame of the cartoon, the mouse is sitting on the top of the alligator's head, and the alligator is now wearing a t-shirt that has a little picture of the mouse, and it says, "Hey, look, this mouse is really great." And it's got an arrow pointing up to his head. It's just that thing of helping each other. Sometimes I'm a bit down and you'll help me, feel a bit up. And sometimes you'll be a bit down and I'll help you feel a bit up. That's how we help each other. It goes back to that lovely quote from Ram Dass where he says, "We're all just helping each other home." And I think that's so true, So it's number one, being sensitive to other people and knowing when someone is saying, "I feel like nobody can see me," and then helping people to see them in a way. It's not like you're going to get thanks. Don't do it for thanks, because you might do it and somebody might go, "Oh, that's totally not what I wanted, How dare you throw that surprise party for me?" I'm not saying you should be throwing surprise parties for people, but don't expect the other person to go, "Oh, thank you so much," because it often doesn't go like that. It's more actually on a more subtle level, where you can get a sense of the other person is just not feeling very seen, and you just in some way reach out to them and let them know that you do see them and you see how wonderful they are. Whether that's just spending a bit of time with them, maybe it's sending them a text, maybe it's FaceTiming with them, or sending them a little gift, sending them flowers. Often people, they respond to the thought, but, presence is a big thing as well. So if you can just go and be with them, just drop in, "I was thinking about you." It's amazing the effect that when you send somebody a little note saying, "Oh, you were on my mind," that goes a long way with people, that just to sort of go, "Oh, well, somebody was thinking about me." Oh my God, it's the theme again. There's a theme. The next one, similar. It just says, "Someone out there feels better because you exist." This is so important to remember. So important to remember, particularly if you're down. Particularly if you're down and you've been down for a while and you feel like no one's noticing that you're down. Because one of the really difficult things about when you're down is you just don't want to talk to people. You don't want to be around people. You don't go, "Oh God, I'm just going to bring everyone down with my downness. I've got nothing to contribute here. I've got nothing to say. I've got nothing good to say. So I don't want to be around people. I don't want to, ruin their day with what's going on for me." That's a very looping dynamic that can keep you very, very, very stuck. And as you withdraw yourself more, you notice that nobody's really, or it feels like that nobody's noticing that you're withdrawing. And, everyone's busy, everyone's getting on with their lives. So you can kind of feel very isolated by your downness. And this is a very helpful meme just to remind you that just because people aren't ringing you up to say, "I'm really glad you're here," doesn't mean that they are impacted by your existence. Because often, if people feel like you're strong and you're resilient and you can handle things, they don't generally call you up. They don't generally call you up to kind of go, "Are you all right?" And if you're a strong kind of person, most of the time that's fine. But if you are a strong person and then you start to feel down, then you can sort of feel like that because no one's getting in touch, they're not really impacted by you. It doesn't matter to them that you're there. But it does. It matters a lot. And this meme is vital for that. Someone out there feels better because you exist. They may not tell you they feel better. You may not know, but they do. And it's more than one person. There are many people out there who feel better because you exist. And that's really important to remember. And it's very hard to remember if you're down, but it's true. There are many people who feel better because you exist. So remember that. Now, I did write this one. It's a sort of a poem. It's a poem about trees. Little, sort of. Little. I never like to say I write poems because I don't think they're poems, because I know what good poetry is like, and this isn't it. I know what, and there are people who devote their lives to writing poetry, poets, and that's all they do. So I feel a bit, I don't like to kind of go, oh, I wrote a poem. I mean, maybe it is a poem, I don't know. Anyway, it's called The Tree and Thee. What the tree breathes out, you breathe in, and what you breathe out, the tree breathes in. Unseen communion with leaves and branches and roots. What life is given, what kindness bestowed, what love is shown in the gentle exhalation of a tree. So it's just kind of a little acknowledgement to the interchange that goes on between me and the tree. You know, what comes out of me goes into the tree, and what comes out of the tree goes into me. So we're in conversation, you know. Now, if you're in the city, it's a bit hard to connect with trees, you know. But I love trees. I love forests, and some of my best friends are trees. And I'm not a tree hugger. I never really got much from hugging a tree, but I do like being around trees. But I understand, then, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? People like hugging trees, you know, or that it's considered, you know. As I say, I was never much for a tree hugger, but I like standing beside trees, and I definitely like looking at trees. And I particularly like looking at trees when they're swaying in the wind. And if you've ever looked at trees swaying in the wind, a really nice thing to do is to forget about what you know of the wind and what it feels like to have the wind blowing on you, and that feeling of that it's the wind pushing the trees around. And if you just look at the trees and you just imagine that there's no wind and the trees are just dancing, it's lovely. It's a lovely thing to do. I didn't write this one, but it's very good. It's not a great meme, I have to say, because the image is kind of blah, but the text is spot on. It says, your attention is your power. When we focus on things that frustrate or annoy us, we give that situation or person our power. You can take it back at any moment. Take your attention and place it somewhere that feels good. So I say this a lot on the podcast, but your internal state is the only thing that you really have any sovereignty over. And that's what this meme is kind of talking about, you know, because we sort of feel like we have to be responsible and watch the news. But you don't. If it's really important, someone will tell you. And I haven't watched the news in, I don't know, feels like 20 years, maybe more. And I still know what's going on, you know, because it's not like I'm living in a cave, and neither are you. You know, you've got a phone, you've got, you know, the information finds its way to you that you want to know about. I feel like I'm quite up on what's going on in the world, yet I don't watch the news. I don't allow myself to be spoon-fed, particularly by media sources that I feel are biased, you know, and we're all the same now. Now we're highly tuned for, a bias in the way something's reported. So if I see something coming in from somewhere, I'll go and find out about it myself. I'll go and I'll look in a few different places to just try. I mean, you can never know unless you're there. Try and get a sense of what might actually be happening. But only to the point, if it starts to make me, if I notice myself worried or a little bit of fear on the edge there trying to come in about something, then I just pull away from it, because I don't want to focus my attention on it, you know, because I've lived long enough now to see a lot of fearful things, you know, on the horizon, pass on the horizon, you know, and if I focused on them, I'd be afraid all the time I'd be afraid. And yes, things have, you know, come close to me, but you know, very little of what was on the horizon actually impacted me directly, you know. And anything that did impact me directly, I dealt with it just the way you deal with it. You know, you just deal with what's in front of you. And I'm not talking about about not dealing with what's in front of you. Of course you're going to do that. But it's about what's on the horizon, and how what's this sort of potential fear on the horizon can just ruin the day, can ruin your moment, you know, if you let it. Whereas if you put your attention on things that make you feel good, you generally get more of what you put your attention on. So generally you'll start to, see more and more things that make you feel good. And then you have to also balance the thing of like our nervous systems are predisposed to look for threats on the horizon. So in order to, counteract a frightening news story, you need to watch, I think it's 7 positive, life-affirming, happy news stories to balance the one scary news story. So it's not like the news outlets are doing that. They're not balancing the coverage of good things and bad things. And the general feeling is, things are getting worse. They're not getting worse. If you take the long view of history, over the last 300 years, there's less war, people are living longer, they're generally healthier, children are living longer, less infant mortality, sanitation, less people starving. It's just better. If you take the last 300, over the last 300 years, the media will always kind of feel like, everything's getting worse, but that's because our nervous system are predisposed in that direction. So you have to actually make a concerted focus to go and find the good stories, to find the wonderful things that are happening. And there's plenty of wonderful things happening out there, and you can find the different sources and find different things that will balance your feed. You have to actually go and find people who are posting about these wonderful things that are happening and include them in your feed as well. Because, as I say, the only thing you've got sovereignty over is how you feel on the inside. So it's kind of your job to curate what goes in, what you ingest. It's like food, if you eat lots of really chemical food that your body finds very dense, it's not gonna go well. Farm news. The main thing this week was I had to trim the top off some trees because they were blocking my Wi-Fi thing. It's a line of sight thing. It has to be able to see the receiver thing down the valley. And my internet connection was going in and out a bit more often. And then it suddenly dawned on me that when I came here first, the guy who set the internet thing up for me was looking at these trees going, you might need to trim those in a little while. That's 2 years ago, give or take. So yeah, I had to go and get my little electric. I've got a little electric chainsaw on a big long pole, so I was able to trim the tops off the trees. I still have a little bit more to do. What was interesting was that it was quite physical, because it's a long pole and you have to hold it up and saw things, and it was on one of my food-free, liquid-free days, because I sort of do that every other day. And I had a lot of energy. If you watch I made a video a good while ago, before I started all this food thing, on moving a shed inside a bigger shed, the garden shed inside a bigger shed. And I was exhausted after that. I was exhausted doing it, and I was exhausted after it. So when I went out to do this, I thought, it happened to fall on I made the realization, oh God, it's the Wi-Fi, it's the trees. That happened to fall on a food-free, liquid-free day. And I thought, well, this will be interesting, how it goes, how my energy will go. I had loads of energy. It was surprising. I was really surprised. And yeah, I was covered in sweat and all that kind of thing. It was very physically demanding. And I must have worked out there for about 3 hours, and I was fine. And wonderfully, next morning, I didn't have any pains in my muscles. And I was using muscles I don't normally use, so I kind of expected to have some lactic acid pain. Didn't have any the next day either. Sometimes it takes 2 days. Didn't have any pains at all. So that was good. Hey, have you signed up for my friendly notes? I send them out every Sunday. If you want to get a friendly note from me, just a little update on what's been happening and some of my writing, if you go to furtheremergence.com, and there's a thing that'll pop up at the bottom and you can sign up there. Life hacks. I'm not sure if this is a life hack, but I'll pass it on. And it's this idea of energy leaks. It's not necessarily to do with tiredness, but if you're wanting to do something, or maybe it is to do with tiredness, the idea of an energy leak is I kind of use this just generally. I don't have that many anymore because I plugged most of them. But if, for example, if you want to become more conscious and you notice that you engage in gossiping, just unconsciously, you just find yourself, you like talking about other people. That can be an energy leak. And identifying that and kind of going, oh yeah, I feel depleted after I do that. It's great when I'm doing it, like everything, it's like sugar. It's great when you're doing it or you're having it. And then if it takes your energy away, then I consider that like an energy leak. And that could be anything, it could be like alcohol, could be complaining, it could be telling your sad story, not once, that's fine, but just repeatedly. Like you might be in the habit of telling your sad story and how terrible things are for you. And these things only matter if you're like in the process of becoming more conscious and you want to conserve more and more energy. Because you could think of your system a bit like a bowl that has turned into a colander. Colander is, I'm not big in the kitchen, but it's like a bowl with lots of holes in it that you drain things, water out of. So you could think of your energy sort of flowing into this bowl of your system and just flowing straight out. And if you, the more energy leaks that you block, the more energy there is to block energy leaks. So there's more energy stays in your system. So anything can be an energy leak. Just depends on what your focus is and where your interests lie. But generally things that are activities that take you away from who you are, like what your true nature is, what you know in your heart yourself to be. So that's why I say things like gossiping, and while it's really enjoyable, it can feel, you can feel depleting afterwards. Winning arguments, that can be an energy leak. If you're a good debater, winning arguments, it can feel good, like I showed them. But then afterwards you feel a bit energy is gone. Maybe being afraid unnecessarily, maybe watching the news like I was talking about earlier on. Lots of different things can be energy leaks. Certain kinds of shows on TV, lots of different things. So I pass it on as a life hack, as something to think about and to kind of review what you do in your day and what gives you energy and what takes energy away from you. How's your meditation going? If you're interested in growing your consciousness, I recommend my training, my Meditation for Growth and Consciousness training. It's really good for helping to do very focused meditation. I'm meditating because I want to grow my consciousness. It's not because I want to become, reduce the amount of stress. It's not because I want to get to sleep. It's not because I want to become calmer and all that. All those things happen. But if your focus is consciousness, then the training I put together is really good for that. It's 4 weeks, and you can go along with it and you can ask questions, and it's brilliant. And there's another training I have about dealing with the psychic world. And that's everything in the psychic world, past lives, goblins, demons, fairies, angels, the lot. I cover it all, and how not to get distracted by it in your descent into consciousness or the mystery, because it can be very distracting. So that's a very good training as well. And then I have another training about, it's a masterclass for craniosacral therapists. So if you're a craniosacral therapist, that's a very good one as well. Now, in response to the post I put on Instagram asking what is the biggest challenge you're facing in your spiritual life right now, this person responded, being patient with the universe. I'm at a stage in my spiritual journey where I'm fully accepting of myself and the experience. But with that, the experience has become extremely self-aware because I've realized even just nodding off into thoughts or fantasy seems like a waste of energy. Because this experience is all we have right in front of us. So I'm sort of glued to the moment, which I used to dream of, but now I'm here, it feels extremely slow and causing me to often feel impatient for things to manifest into physical reality. Okay, well, that's the thing about the moment, isn't it? it distorts time when you come into it more and more. And you can feel like it goes on forever. And in a way, it kind of does. Because I've kind of talked around it before of like, for myself, I can only come into about 5 minutes on either side of the moment. I'm not sure if that's exactly true, but that's the way it feels to my mind. You know, the idea of the speed that the moment moves at, you know, by the time I just finished that last sentence, this sentence, you know, it's gone, it's moved on. Everything is, you know, it's straight away into the past. It's gobbling up the future, and it's leaving the past behind at an incredible rate, you know. So that's what I mean about it's very hard to come into the moment. I do it, of course, in meditation, and in meditation, and even, you know, like the more you meditate, the more you can experience what you experience in meditation during the day when your eyes are open, walking around. That's one of the things I kind of go into is you know, when you start meditating, it feels like you're descending down into somewhere. But the more you meditate, particularly when you're focused on consciousness, that it's almost like you bring that up into the surface of your day to day, and you can be in that place with your eyes open, talking to your neighbor. So if I focus on it, I am in the moment, which is another way of saying I'm being present. I'm just very aware of my presence. And when you experience that first, it can have the feeling of, even though I'm saying it's moving very fast, if you move into the eternal moment, then it can feel like it's very slow. But I think over time you get used to being able to hold both at the same time. You can be conscious of the linear time that we all subscribe to, and the illusion here that we live in, you know, past, present, future, even though the present is very narrow. You know, it's so close to the past is so close to the future. You know, it's only separated by this thing that we call the present. But you can be conscious of the past, present, future. Your mind can be thinking about what you're going to do next and what you did in the past, and there is a place for reviewing what you did in the past if you do it consciously. So all that can go along. The sort of linear timeline can go along on one way, and then you can also be completely in the moment where time's not moving at all. You can hold the two at the same time, and you can, depending on what's happening, you can go back and forth between them, you know. So I think it's something that just passes, you know. And like everything else in the spiritual life and consciousness, you know, it's not to hang on to anything. Just because you had a big realization 2 years ago doesn't mean that you should feel like you should be feeling that as well, because realizations become part of us, you know, and they're just part of the scenery, and they don't have the fireworks that they had the first time you realize them. So everything passes, integrates into your system, and just it becomes part of you. So similarly, I'd say this will as well. You just get used to it, and you get used to the being able to kind of, it's like focusing your eyes. You can focus on what's close to you or far away. You can focus on the eternal moment that you're in, or you can focus on linear time, and just depends on what's appropriate for what's going on. Okay, I hope that helped. So that's all I have for you this time. I trust you're well. I trust you're of good cheer, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.